So here's a question for you, one that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a political thriller. How can a leader, a guy who seemed absolutely immovable, who held on to power for 3 decades, how does he get toppled in less than 3 weeks? Let's get into it.
Okay, picture this. It's 2011. We're in Tahrir Square, right in the heart of Cairo. And this isn't just a protest. It is a literal sea of people. Millions of Egyptians, from every walk of life you can imagine, all flooding the streets, united by one single powerful demand. It was time for a change.
And the man at the very center of all this? Hosni Mubarak. This is the story of his epic rise to power and his absolutely stunning, rapid fall from it.
We're looking at this story as a classic showdown, right? It's the people versus the man they called the Pharaoh. But to really, truly understand how things got to this point, well, we need to go back, way back.
Because you see, to get a handle on the fall, you've got to understand the rise. The seeds of that 18-day revolution, they were planted over his entire 30-year rule, a rule that didn't even start in politics, but with the ambition of a soldier.
Yeah, before he was Mr. President, he was a commander. Mubarak's whole identity was forged, not in smoke-filled political rooms, but in the super-disciplined, hierarchical world of the military.
He was born in this small village in the Nile Delta. And really, he was a product of the military from a very young age. He became a pilot, shot up the ranks of the Egyptian Air Force, and even got top-tier training in the Soviet Union. By all accounts, he was known for being disciplined, incredibly skilled, and a really powerful commander.
And his rise to the top? Man, it was fast. In 1973, he became a national hero for his command during the Yom Kippur War, especially those surprise air attacks against Israel. That fame just catapulted him into politics. 2 years later, President Sadat makes him vice president. And then, 1981, tragedy strikes. Sadat is assassinated, and just like that, Hosni Mubarak becomes the 4th president of Egypt.
So when he takes power, Mubarak's #1 goal is crystal clear: stability. And you know what? For 3 decades, he delivered. But that stability, it came at a pretty significant cost. Think of it as a kind of bargain that was offered. On one side, you've got the promise. Egypt will be stable, it'll keep the peace with Israel, and it'll be a key ally to the US. But the price on the other side? It was steep. We're talking decades under an emergency law that basically suspended constitutional rights, a political opposition that was completely crushed, a press that couldn't speak freely, and elections that were, well, pretty much just for show.
And this, right here, was the secret to his survival on the world stage. For the US and other Western powers, Mubarak was a known quantity. In a really chaotic Middle East, he was seen as a reliable guy, a steady hand. And that perception? It brought Egypt billions and billions of dollars in aid. But here's the thing. While the rest of the world saw this anchor of stability, a lot of Egyptians back home were feeling something very different. See, just beneath that calm surface, some really deep cracks were starting to form.
All that economic growth you heard about, it never really trickled down. It just created this tiny, super wealthy elite while millions got left behind. Corruption felt like it was everywhere, and for young people, finding a job was getting harder and harder. But maybe the real final straw was this growing rumor that Mubarak was grooming his son, Gamal, to take over, basically turning the country into a monarchy.
So all of that anger, decades of it, just simmering under the surface, finally just boiled over in January 2011. Which brings us right back to where we started, the 18 days that absolutely shook Egypt and the world. I mean, just stop and think about that number. 30 years. An entire generation of Egyptians grew up knowing no other leader. He seemed permanent, like a mountain. And then, this. In just 18 days, the whole thing comes crashing down. The contrast is just, it's staggering. It just goes to show you how fragile even the strongest seeming regime can be when the people finally say, enough is enough. And what do the protesters want? Well, it was actually pretty straightforward. They wanted an end to the corruption they felt was stealing their future. They wanted real democracy with elections that actually meant something. And #1, with a bullet, Mubarak had to go. For 18 days, he desperately clung to power. But the end came when his own foundation, the military, turned on him. The army, the very institution he came from, announced it wouldn't fire on the people. And that was it. That was the final blow. On February 11th, his own vice president went on TV and announced that Hosni Mubarak was stepping down. And what happened next was just an unbelievable spectacle. The once all-powerful pharaoh was put on trial, and those images of him being wheeled into a courtroom cage on a hospital gurney were broadcast all over the planet. It was such a powerful symbol of just how far and how fast he had fallen.
Now, after years of trials and prisons and acquittals, Mubarak was eventually let go. But his whole story just begs this huge question about his 30 years in charge. What exactly is his legacy? Well, the thing is, the answer completely depends on who you ask. His supporters will point to all those years of stability. They'll argue he kept Egypt out of the kind of chaos you saw elsewhere in the region. But his critics, they'll remember an authoritarian ruler who oversaw massive corruption and crushed the dreams of his own people.
Hosni Mubarak died in 2020 as a free man, but his legacy is anything but settled. The Egypt of today is still dealing with the fallout, a nation still trying to figure out its path forward in the shadow of his long rule.
And really, that's the core question his story leaves us with. It's a debate that echoes all through history, and it's happening all around the world right now. What's more important? The predictable, safe order that comes with stability, or the messy, unpredictable, but powerful promise of freedom? There's no easy answer, and the story of Hosni Mubarak, well, it's one of the most powerful case studies you'll ever find.